Welcome one, welcome all to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops and DeFi University, the DeFi High Edition, which is mine and David's entry level show that we do daily, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. or excuse me, 9 a.m. Pacific time and noon Eastern time, where we give you entry level DeFi education, just so you're able to bridge over into the more advanced jargon that you hear on most DeFi channels, including ours on Wednesdays. So how's it going, David?
Outstanding, Mike. Doing well today, man. I'm taking a look at silver ripping,
Yep.
silver up near 114,
Oh,
gold above 5,000. Uh, Natural gas has more than doubled over the past week and a half. And the yen is ripping higher. The dollar is dumping. Just big movements in markets. But yeah, man. So what I've got for us today is I want to hop in and take a look at DeFi High School. I want to run through money basics. It's
yeah.
gonna
Go
be
ahead, share your screen.
it's gonna be great, man. Okay.
So real quick, there is some big news that I want to share. The U.S. It looks like the U.S. Senate will vote on the crypto market structure bill tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. So prepare for volatility anytime between now, up to then, and potentially after, depending on how all that goes. Because my understanding is it's already passed the House. It just needs to pass the Senate, and then it goes to Trump's desk for signature. And as bullish as he is on crypto, unless there's some major things in it that he doesn't like, it will be signed into law, and it will give a lot of clarity to these markets, DeFi included.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to really look into the market structure bill. So is that different, Mike, than the Clarity Act?
That I believe that it's the same thing. Let me take a look real quick. Go ahead and if you want to kick things off with the course material, then I can look that up while you do that.
Definitely. Yeah. So I've got two lessons here that I want to go through with everyone today. The first one, and by the way, this is how you find these lessons. They're all free. All you got to do is go to courses.defiuniversity.xyz. That is the course hub. And then from within the course hub, I published DeFi High School course number 1, Money Basics. Now, there are 5 DeFi High School courses. I've published number 1, and by the end of the day today, I'm going to publish the other 4. They're all written and done, just a matter of publishing them. So what I want to run through here with everyone today is lesson 1 and lesson 2 in DeFi High School Money Basics. So lesson 1 is the problem money solves, and lesson 2 is money as a record-keeping system, money as information. And so let's see here
Well,
if we'll,
real quick, if you want me to, they are different, and I have some quick summaries here if you're interested.
yeah, please, yeah.
All right. So the U.S. Congress crypto market structure legislation, which is the one for tomorrow, refers to a broader effort to create a comprehensive regulatory framework for digital assets. This includes clarifying which agency oversees what: the CFTC for commodities versus SEC for securities, rules for exchanges, intermediaries, DeFi elements, and overall market structure for crypto. The Clarity Act, the full name is Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, or similar variants like HR 3633, is a specific House bill that has been a key part of this market structure push. It's frequently called the Market Structure Bill or Clarity Act interchangeably in crypto media, industry updates, and congressional discussions.
Hmm.
So it looks like that the Clarity Act is more focused on DeFi, whereas the crypto market structure bill is more of a shotgun blast. It's more of a wider, wider market, legislation.
Yeah, so it seems like the Market Structure Act or Market Structure Bill, it sounds to me like that is more about like who
Yeah.
regulates what. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. That Clarity Act from what I read about it, it looked like it was just a big handout to the banking industry. Um,
It that's why Coinbase pulled out of it, and a lot of the support got pulled from it. Is the banks definitely and their lobbyists definitely got their fingers into the soup. They were basically wanting it to where we in DeFi couldn't earn yield on stable coins, which is a huge part of their monopoly. Currently, as you all know, we deposit our money in the bank and they lend our money out, give us next to nothing, if anything, for using our liquidity. And they're making, 6, 7, 8% or more on our on our our money. And they love that because that's all profit for them. They're using our money to make profit and not sharing it with us. And so DeFi, those of you that don't know, if you're new to DeFi, you can take your money and instead of putting it in a bank, you can put it in stable coins, you can put it in Bitcoin or altcoins, and you can lend it out. You can stake it, you can lend it out, you can put it in liquidity pools and provide liquidity, and people pay you fees, like they pay the bank fees to use your liquidity. And banks don't like that. That takes away their monopoly. So of course, they're kicking and screaming, and they have a lot of money to throw around and a lot of politicians that they've put into office, one of which Elizabeth Warren, who's been caught with her hand in the soup. She's the head of the financial committee. She has been using the SEC and Gary Gensler for years to try to keep the banks hold and try to kill crypto. They lost that battle when Trump got elected, and now they are trying to last ditch effort, inject their interests into these into this legislation. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I just really, really hope that and I'm going to read about that market structure bill immediately after our call today, but I really, really hope that they're not baking into it any type of restrictions on DeFi. I hope that what they're doing is just, making it clear who regulates what. I hope that's what it is, but I'm definitely going to produce some research on it for DeFi University for later on today. Need to learn more about that. That's for sure. Um, all righty. So you want to hop in and see
yeah,
what is money? Yeah,
yeah.
man, this will be great. So I'm going to go ahead and just scroll through the lesson content real quick. This is, remember, this is DeFi High School. So these are the prerequisites before you get to DeFi University, right? So you need
Mhm.
to learn first about, hey, what is the problem that money solves? And what even is money? And so all of this lesson material here says here that the core concept is that money exists because trading directly, for example, I have apples, you have shoes, that gets really complicated really fast. So we're going to learn today about the problem that money solves, and we're going to learn about it through the apple farmer's dilemma, which I thought was a kind of a cute way to explain this concept here. So why don't I go ahead and just hit play on this video content, and we can learn about money.
We use it every single day. But have you ever stopped to ask, what is money really? I mean, it's more than just the paper in your wallet or the numbers on a screen, right? It's actually an invention, a really brilliant solution to a problem that's way more complicated than you'd think. And we're about to figure it all out.
Okay, so just for a second, picture a world with no money at all. Seriously, how would you get your morning coffee? Or, say, a new pair of shoes? You'd have to trade for it, right? But what do you even have to offer? It's that simple question that gets right to the heart of the whole chaotic problem that forced us to invent money in the first place.
All right, to really get a handle on this, let's follow the story of an apple farmer. All she wants is a new pair of shoes. Simple enough, right? Well, in a world without money, she's about to find out how a simple errand can turn into, well, a nearly impossible task. This, my friends, is the barter problem.
So, meet our farmer. She's got a whole basket of the absolute best apples you.
Man, look at her shoes. Our apple farmer here, she needs some new shoes, man. But if she's only got a basket of apples, how in the world is she supposed to barter for those new shoes, right?
She sells those apples for silver or gold.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at silver right now, 114 and 114 quarter. So she's not going to be able to get much for those apples, man.
I know, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Crisp, juicy, perfect. But her shoes? Totally falling apart. The plan seems super straightforward. Just go to the shoemaker, trade some apples for new shoes. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, there's a problem, a big one. The shoemaker, she doesn't want apples. What she really needs is a fresh loaf of bread for her family's dinner. So that simple, direct trade, yeah, it's a total non-starter.
Okay, but our farmer, she's not giving up that easily. She takes her apples over to the baker. But of course, the baker has tons of fruit already. What he needs are eggs to bake his cakes. And just like that, the chain of wants gets another link longer. You can just feel the frustration starting to bubble up, can't you?
Yeah, you can totally see where this is going, can't you? What started as a simple errand has turned into this chaotic all-day adventure. Our poor farmer is stuck in this tangled web of wants, just trying to find the one person who wants her apples and also happens to have what the next person in line needs. It's just wildly inefficient.
Okay, let's just lay this whole journey out. Step 1, she's got to trade her apples for some eggs. Step 2, take those eggs and trade them for bread. And then, finally, she can trade that bread for the shoes. It's a crazy amount of work. And you know what's worse? She's on the clock. If her apples go bad during this whole scavenger hunt, she's got nothing. The risk is completely on her. Believe it or not, this whole messy situation actually has a fancy name in economics. It's called the double coincidence of wants.
Let's take a look at this. So the double coincidence of wants. It says for a direct trade to work, both people must want exactly what the other has at the same time. Man, that's pretty difficult. Imagine if I've got a basket of apples and I want to buy a keyboard for my computer. Good luck, going from the apples to something else to something else to the keyboard.
Well, and time
Wow.
is key, because, time, I mean, especially if you're dealing with, produce and things like that, if they're in season or not, if, time, the time of year, like if you're, trying to buy a coat, a coat's not going to be as valuable in the middle of the summer as it is in the middle of winter, so yeah, a lot of things, that aren't money, they're goods or services really depend on time. So
Yeah, man. And what even is money? I think it's just a
it's a
ledger.
representation of time, honestly.
Yeah, it is. And so, later on in the Money Basics course, it actually talks about that, which is pretty cool. But this terminology here, the double coincidence of wants, pretty interesting stuff. I bet this is in like economics textbooks.
Oh, I'm
And that is
sure.
the
I'm sure.
absolute core problem of bartering. It just means that for a direct trade to work, you have to have exactly what the other person wants, and they have to have exactly what you want at the exact same time.
Hmm.
Think about how rare that is.
Yeah.
So, how in the world do you solve a problem this tangled? Well, this is where money finally enters the story. Think of it like a universal translator for value. It just cuts right through all that chaos with a solution that's, well, it's really elegant. I mean, just look at the difference here. On the one hand, you have the barter system, this chaotic multi-step nightmare. But with money, the whole thing becomes incredibly simple. You sell your apples for cash, and then you take that cash and buy the shoes. Boom. Problem solved.
This is a perfect way to think about it. Bartering is kind of like trying to find someone who wants your very specific gift card for just one store. It's tough, but money is the universal gift card. It works everywhere. Everyone accepts it. Why? Because they know with absolute confidence that they can turn right around and use it to get whatever they want.
Can you imagine going into a bakery and trying to use like an Apple Store gift card to buy a loaf of bread? Uh, you know, yeah, man.
And this right here, this is the most important secret about money. Its power doesn't come from what it's made of. It doesn't matter if it's shells or gold or paper. Its power comes from a shared belief. The only reason it works is because we all agree that it works. It's basically a massive collective trust exercise. Okay, so now that we get why we
So let's just go back. Let's take a look at that one more second. So it's not only a medium of exchange, but what did they say? It's a trust exercise. So I think that's right
Well,
back.
I mean, it really is because I mean, if you look at it from a point of view of the U.S. dollar, I mean, look at the U.S. dollar. The trust is dropping, so is the value because they keep printing it, and so I mean, you're trusting that the currency that they're giving you is going to hold its value because I mean, if you don't think that somebody handing you $100 bill, if you think tomorrow it's going to be worth $10 or nothing, there's a trust there. You're trusting that the government is acting in good faith and they're backing it by something, or that it's going to have the same buying power over time. Again, is the time factor. So
Yeah, I think in our case, we're trusting that the central bank and the government are not going to spend recklessly or print recklessly. And I don't know, man, they seem to have been eroding that trust.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we get why we even need money, let's break down the three main jobs it actually does for us in an economy. What does this universal translator really do?
All right, job number one, and this is the big one. Money is a medium of exchange. It's the go-between. This is what lets our farmer finally trade her apples for shoes without that insane scavenger hunt. It solves that core barter problem, plain and simple.
Okay, so number one, money is a medium of exchange.
Okay, job number two. Money is a store of value. Now think about it. Our farmers' apples, they're going to rot. But money, it holds its purchasing power over time.
Does it though?
Eh.
And it's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
So she can sell all of her apples when they're ripe and save up that value to buy whatever she needs, maybe months down the road. It totally separates when you earn from when you spend.
Right. But if the central bank and the government are reckless in the way that they manage the value of that money, then when you get paid, like in countries where they experience hyperinflation, the moment that you get paid, you have to go and buy some good because the money is losing its value super
Mhm.
fast. So,
Well, that's why a lot of us got into crypto is, we were looking for, something to put our money in to where we can earn on it and to where it holds its value because of inflation. That's why, historically, kind of the old school crypto was gold and silver because, over time, it held its value. Like, if you have like what is it, $1.25 of silver quarters, the face value is $1.25, but 1964 and previous to that, that's 90% silver and 10% copper. So those same coins that used to be worth $1.25 are now worth over $100. So it goes to show you that you know um, purchasing items like David's talking about, where the value of those assets goes up over time, is critically important because if you're just putting money in the bank, on average, every year you're losing 7 to 10% of the buying power. So over 10 years, I mean, you're looking at like 70% potentially of the buying power, being lost. And that's why you're seeing housing prices skyrocket. That's why you're seeing, grocery prices skyrocketing, and things like that. It's not that necessarily that, the corporations are greedy. It's the cost of goods and services and transport and, the cost of everything is going up. So yeah, I mean, they're greedy as well, but at the same time, they have operating costs and those are going up. So,
yeah, I think the reason why prices are going up is not because those goods and services are suddenly much more valuable. It's
no.
because the unit of account, which is the dollar, is
Mhm.
becoming less valuable. You know who's
Exactly.
yeah, you know who's put together the best like explanations of all this is Michael Saylor. And what you were just describing, Mike, about the dollar losing its purchasing power over time, you've got to ask yourself, why is it that I guess you could call it like the tokenomics of the dollar? Why is the dollar supposed to have a 2% inflation rate. Why is that baked into the pie? Like, why is a 2% inflation rate a good thing? And, if you take a look at the official numbers, we're sitting higher than 2%. We're sitting, closer to what, 3%, something like that. So over how many years will the dollar lose half of its purchasing power? Isn't it like according to Michael Saylor, when he ran this, isn't it like every 20 years or maybe
Yeah.
less time than that, it loses half of its purchasing power?
It's accelerating, from, the data. It's,
It is.
what is it? 80% of, all the money ever printed, is like been in the past like 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, man. And that is very, very bad for the dollar as a store of value. It is not a store of value, man. Yeah, so this is the
Well, I
second
mean, think
thing.
of it like crypto, and, everybody always talks about, tokens in circulation and, and how that affects the price of the token. It's the same thing.
It
The
is.
more of, that, money or that token that's out there, then the less it's worth. It's
I,
like gold. If all of a sudden, they found a planet that was, or the moon, they, brushed away the dust and all of a sudden it was a, giant, chunk of gold, and they started mining that, there'd be a lot more gold and it'd be a lot less valuable.
Man, imagine if the moon, it turns out it's not made of cheese and instead it's actually made of gold.
Well, we all know it's hollow, and that's where the aliens and the Nazis hide. So,
Oh, dude, right. I forgot about that.
And finally, job number 3, money is a unit of account. It's basically a universal ruler we use to measure value. So instead of this crazy system where a pair of shoes costs 50 apples and a loaf of bread costs 5 apples, we get one standard measurement. A pair of shoes costs, say, $80. It creates a common language that everyone understands.
Now, what would happen if the unit of account was Satoshis rather than US dollars? Now,
you'd have a
Mike,
lot more stable economy.
I mean, maybe, because BTC is pretty volatile itself. But I think it would be, I think that's
Well,
probably,
but over time, it goes up. Yeah, it's very volatile. But with adoption, that potentially would smooth out. But over time, it's always gone up. That trend line that you were showing the other
it
day.
has, it has, it has. And
Whereas the dollar, it's trending down over time.
I know, man. I know. And it's inflating away. And, the bankers, they say that an inflation rate is a good thing. I don't see how it's a good thing. I think it's a bad thing. But,
I would be interested to hear how they're justifying that comment.
oh, dude, did you hear Fed Chair Jerome Powell? He was asked about that. I think, some senator asked him about that in one of his recent press conferences. And his answer was, well, that's what everyone says is good. It's like, that's basically what he said, man. You got to go. We got to find that video.
All the cool kids are saying it, so it must be true.
Yeah, I mean, it was some senator, and I think she was asking him like, so why is it that a 2% inflation rate is a good thing? And his answer was basically, well, that's what everyone does. 2% is like the global standard, and like that's not an answer. Like, why is any rate of inflation a good thing? I don't know, but the unit of account. Whenever you take a look at money markets in DeFi, they all use the US dollar as the unit of account. What happens when all of a sudden there's a money market that uses Satoshis as the unit of account, or ETH as the unit of account, or Sol as the unit of account? That I think would be a transformative for digital money.
So
Actually,
why does
there's
any
a
of this
good.
matter?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead, man.
I was just going to say there's a really good question on the arena. So who does inflation favor?
I think it probably favors the government. I think also having dollars that inflate makes it easier to perpetuate long-standing conflicts. I think that like if you go back and read history back to 1912 when the Fed was created, and it seems as though part of the reason why the Fed was created was to fund World War One, to allow the entry of the United States into World War One. That's what it seems like to me. But yeah, why is a 2% inflation rate a good thing? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it is. But
It doesn't seem like it benefits anybody other than, it doesn't benefit the government necessarily, I think, but it's a result of poor money management and printing more money because they don't have a balanced budget. They're spending. It's a result of them spending more than they are basically taking in, because the only way the government really makes money is by collecting taxes, and things like that. So they're spending more than they're taking in, and as a result, they have to print more money, and they have to, basically go into debt. They sell that debt in the form of bonds to other governments and individuals and things like that. And historically, people have, enthusiastically bought that debt because they knew that the US was good for it. However, as of late, that confidence has waned and our own government has started buying its own debt. So it's a very incestuous relationship when you're buying your own debt to artificially prop up your currency.
it's almost like the people who are running the central bank and many people in the government are financially illiterate. Like you can't
Yeah.
perpetuate this cycle forever without
Yeah.
something going horribly wrong.
Makes
And
you wonder what they have going on in their head.
I don't know, man. You can't keep running deficits like these are wartime deficits that we've been running in the United States since the pandemic, since those lockdowns.
Yeah.
And hey, guess what? There's no more lockdowns, there's no more pandemic. And yet that deficit spending continues. What's the result? The US dollar inflates away in value. And you can see that represented in the price of gold and silver, like
Yep.
monetary metals. Gold up almost near 5,100 and silver 115.20. Wow. Wow.
Today. I mean, a story about an apple farmer? It matters because these same fundamental ideas, this whole problem of escaping barter, are exactly what's at the heart of the conversation around the newest financial tech out there, cryptocurrency.
Okay, here's where we connect all the dots. Remember those 3 jobs of money we just talked about? Well, cryptocurrencies are basically trying to do the exact same 3 things. They're designed to be a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account.
So this is what you need for something to be money, right? It needs to be a medium of exchange so that you don't have to take your apples and go and trade them 3 or 4 times to be able to buy shoes. It needs to be a store of value, and that simply means that it doesn't inflate away in value over time. And it needs to be the standard unit of account, something to measure your goods or services against that everyone accepts. So these are the 3 things that you need for something to be money. And I don't know, man, I would say that Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, many other digital assets, they definitely fit the bill. What did you say?
They potentially could. It's just a matter of wider adoption, if there can be more adoption of it. And something I want to point out is what David's talking about here in this, course material is there's history to support all this. I mean, look at a lot of failing governments and economies, like the former Soviet Union. There was people in bread lines that would line up, and to buy shoes, to not in bread lines to buy shoes, but in lines to buy shoes, and they would buy shoes that they didn't want, that just, they not even the right size, just because they wanted to buy something that they knew people would need that they could later trade for, bread or for something else or for the, their shoe size. It's, it's why a medium of exchange, a store of value and a unit of account like this is so important, that is universally recognized. So sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, but think about what happens when the money that you use is no longer a reliable store of value. So that leads to the situation where you've got the money. Let's say that you get paid in whatever currency, whatever fiat currency, backed by nothing. You get paid in that fiat, but you know that tomorrow that fiat is going to be worth 5% less, meaning you can buy 5% fewer goods and services with it. Well, if you know that's going to be the case, or if you believe that's going to be the case, then you had better take that fiat and immediately, the moment you get it, swap it or trade it or buy something like a physical good, a TV, shoes, bread, literally anything, because you know that if you hold that currency, that fiat that is inflating away, you know that you're losing your store of value. Every moment that you hold it, it's just becoming less and less valuable. And a great example of this from like just the past couple of weeks is what happened to what's the name of the Iranian currency, whatever that is. So their currency went to zero overnight. Like,
Yeah.
so all of a sudden you've got no store of value. The unit of account, all of a sudden, everything that you want to go and buy with it, because the denominator, whatever you measure that good or service in, if the denominator goes to zero, then all of a sudden, it's like, imagine you go to buy some coffee, and because the unit of account went to zero, that means that the coffee is $1 million. Well, that's a problem. And then all of a sudden, it is no longer a medium of exchange, because if it goes to zero, then you can't exchange your money for any goods or services.
I think it's called a reali.
Yes, yeah, the real. That's right. Yeah,
It's not real because that's Brazil, but I think it's called like a reali or something. It's a RIAL, but it's pronounced phonetically RIYALE. Reali.
yeah. Well, hey, it's worth nothing now.
But no, I mean you're right. It's you saw it in Argentina. When their economy collapsed. It basically people were throwing away, like they weren't even robbing the banks. I mean, it was being dumped in dumpsters and it was just all over the streets because it wasn't even worth toilet paper. I mean, it was worthless. So,
Yeah.
and it started happening in Greece, before the EU bailed them out because they're part of the European Union, and they didn't want them to drag down, the euro. And so Germany bailed them out, and you saw a run on banks. Everybody was trying to get to the bank to get their money out so they could exchange it into dollars or anything else, other than their own currency.
Right. And so that was back in 2011. And so back then they were called the pigs. It was Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. And so those four pigs had done, an exceedingly poor job of managing these three things. And, they needed a bailout. And now it's kind of funny because Germany needs to bail out itself. It's come full circle.
Yeah.
The radical idea is that they're trying to do it all with just technology. No banks or governments need it.
And this all leaves us with a massive, defining question for the future of money. We've seen that regular money, the kind we use every day, gets its power from our shared agreement, from trust. The great experiment of our time, really, is this. Can pure code, can technology ever truly replace that collective human trust? That's a story that is still being written.
I think it can. I think it can. So, that whole thing, Mike, where code is law, I think that can replace, the shared agreement that we have right now around money. Um, and hey, I live my life off of ETH. And, I'm looking forward to getting that market structure bill and getting that Clarity Act passed. And I want it to be, something that is beneficial for everyday users of crypto and DeFi, and not something that is just a handout to big banks. Because, hey, if code is law and digital assets become money, agreed upon money, then it's probably just a matter of time until you see money markets in DeFi where the unit of account is Bitcoin, is the Satoshi. That's going to be really, really cool, man. So,
Well, and that that historically, the fact that, there's only 21 million Bitcoin that can ever exist is a massive advantage, over traditional currencies. Because, you look everything from the Roman Empire, where they devalued their own money by reducing the, amount of silver and gold that were in their coins, and clipping coins and things like that, all the way up to the current times where they just print, they just print paper money that, really isn't worth anything other than what is agreed upon that it's worth. Things like Bitcoin, there's a only so much of it that can be produced. And so, as the demand and the use of it goes up, then like you said, instead of, things being measured in the price of Bitcoin, it will be measured in the price of Satoshis, which is a fraction of a Bitcoin, much like, a dollar and a penny. It's a smaller denomination of Bitcoin, to those of you that don't know. So it's, very, very important. And I think that we're watching the evolution of money happen right now.
I agree with you. And, I think that since this is, course one in DeFi high school and lesson one, I just want to, now that we've watched the video content, I want to run through this lesson. It's really short. I just want to run through this real quick because we need to build a foundation for the rest of the courses that we're going to go through over the coming weeks. So this is the problem that money solves. It removes the need to barter for everything. Money exists because trading directly, for example, that barter analogy, where let's say Mike has apples and I have shoes, and Mike wants to trade his apples for my shoes. Well, what if I don't need apples? What if I need bread? Mike has to go and trade his apples for bread and then trade that bread to me for shoes. That gets really complicated really fast. So that's the core problem that money solves, right? So if Mike is the apple farmer and he's got this, all these apples, right? And he wants to be able to buy some shoes, well, he might have to swap his apples for eggs and bread first just to be able to get to the shoes. That is a huge pain, man. That doesn't really work very well. So, and that's referred to as the double coincidence of wants. So let's check this out. For a direct trade to work, both people need to want exactly what the other person has. And Mike, at the exact same time. That's what you were talking about.
Mhm.
So it's like trying to find someone who wants to swap their Netflix password for your Spotify password. Possible, but very unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay, and very inconvenient. So enter money. This eliminates that double coincidence of wants problem. So yeah, these images here, I'm going to go back in and make sure that I fix all of these spelling errors. But this is the core idea of the double coincidence of wants. So for me to be able to spend apples to buy shoes, well, then the person who I'm spending those apples to buy shoes, that person has to want my apples. We both have to want the same thing at the same time. Very unlikely. And it creates a very inconvenient problem. So, what is money? Money becomes the middleman that everyone accepts. And here's that key insight. Money is just something that everyone agrees to accept. It doesn't matter what the money actually is. It could be shells, right? It could
It
be,
has been.
yeah,
In
or
the
it
in the
could
in
be
the past,
silver,
Native American tribes and, many tribes around the world have used, stones and shells and all kinds of, tally sticks, all kinds of stuff.
right? How about metal coins? It
Yeah.
could be silver. It used to be silver coins, gold coins.
Yeah.
And then with the Medicis, it became paper. You had those letters of credit. And
Mhm.
now it is just a number on a screen. So, what are the three jobs that money does? These are the three important things that money must do to be money. Number one, it's got to be a medium of exchange. So, this is the basic job. Money helps you trade. Instead of bartering apples for shoes through a chain of trades, you use money as the go between. It's the middleman. Number two, it's got to be a store of value. Unlike the apples that rot in a week, money usually, see that's the key. usually holds its value over time. What happens when the money that we all depend on starts to not hold its value over time? That's a problem. So it says you can sell your apples today and buy shoes next month. Money lets you save purchasing power for later. That's really the core innovation of digital assets. One of them is that it lets you store your purchasing power for later, and hopefully it doesn't inflate away at some arbitrary rate of inflation like 2%. So, and then the third thing here is unit of account. So money gives us a standard way to measure value. Instead of saying these shoes are worth 50 apples, right? We say these shoes cost $80. It's like having a ruler for value. Everyone measures using the same units. And maybe not too distant, not too far out in the future, we might be saying these shoes cost 80 satoshis. Now that is where it looks like we're heading. So why does this matter for your crypto journey? Well, really simple. Understanding what money is helps you understand what cryptocurrency does. At its core, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are trying to do the same three jobs, just without needing the intermediary, without needing banks or governments to run the system. That is really one of the core innovations.
Well, and maybe a little just a small history lesson for those out there that might not understand crypto and kind of Bitcoin and why kind of why we're all here. Is Bitcoin was created after the 2008 market crash, because whoever or whoever the person was or the people were that created Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, they understood that money needed to evolve. They saw that our money system was flawed, and Bitcoin was their solution. They came up with Bitcoin. If you read the white paper, I'll summarize, is it's basically it is a form of currency that has a limited supply. It doesn't matter if you're a government, it doesn't matter who it is. You can't create more of it. So it gets rid of that ability to, basically devalue it through mismanagement. So, and it's a measure of work. It's a measure of time, the time it takes to create, more of it. Because, not all of that 21 million is in circulation. There's still some that is yet to be mined, and every, cycle that gets cut in half, how much can be mined. So,
Yeah.
Understanding the tokenomics of it, that's why crypto is why many of us see it as the future of money, is because there is this ability to ensure that everyone acts responsibly, that there's a shared mutual interest in everything that David's talking about, where, it secures it as a medium of exchange. It secures it as a store of value, and it's an agreed upon unit of account that we all can agree on, because we know how much of it there is. We know how much it's worth, and, we agree on it, as it becomes more and more adopted and more accepted, then the price will stabilize. Right now we're in this massive adoption stage, and that's why at first you saw these huge gains in value, is because it went from something that people were sitting in their mom's basement trading for fun, to where it started to get used on the black market, on the dark web. People were buying and selling drugs and stuff with it, in the very beginning, as well as other things. And then it got to a point to where it started being used for legitimate reasons, and, just so on and so forth, to where we are now, where you have, institutions, launching ETFs, for this asset. You see governments adopting it. El Salvador was in debt. Their president started buying Bitcoin through the bear market, and everyone was calling him crazy and stupid. Now they have a massive surplus because they were buying it like 15, 16,000 per Bitcoin. And even now, with it being down, what are we at? Around 80,000?
87.
87, 87,000. So, that's why we're talking about this. I just kind of want to round this out, that the reason that we're talking about this is it's important to understand foundationally why institutions, governments, and those of us in crypto are so, I hate to use the word bullish, but so bullish on crypto in general, is because it solves a lot of pain points or problems with the money that is currently being used. So sorry, I just wanted to,
I'm super bullish, Mike. I am
yeah.
super bullish on the future for crypto and decentralized finance. And, I mean, look, it is definitely the future of money, no doubt about it. And so let's just take a look at these key takeaways from the lesson, right? So bartering is inefficient because you need to find someone who wants exactly what you have at the same time. So that is very inefficient, difficult to figure that bartering out. So money is any widely accepted medium that solves the double coincidence of wants problem. So there's that terminology from economics, right? Double coincidence of wants. Money serves three functions. It is a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account. The specific form doesn't matter. We took a look at some research, I think last week, talking about money back in time, going from shells to rye stones to tally sticks to letters of credit to, gold and silver coins or paper fiat, and now digital assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. So the specific form doesn't matter. What matters is that it's shared agreement. So the shared agreement is what gives it value. You have to believe that something has value.
Silver's up to $116.50.
I know, man. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now on my other screen here, and 115.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to distract you. Keep going.
No, man. I mean, this is great.
It
Yeah,
plays into what we're talking about.
exactly. And cryptocurrency is attempting the same jobs using new technology. So now that we've gotten through, lesson one here, the problem money solves, we've got 13 minutes left. Let's see if we can hop into lesson two. And I want to get started on this one for tomorrow. So money as information, money as a record keeping system. This is pretty darn cool. Let's take a look at this here.
All right, today we're going to do something that might just change the way you see your bank account forever. Because that thing you call money, well, what if it's really just an idea, a promise, written down in a giant invisible ledger? Let's get into it. So let's just kick things off with a pretty wild thought. That balance you see on your banking app, the number you count on every day, what if it isn't a pile of cash sitting in a vault with your name on it? What if it's something else entirely?
So this, Mike, this is a really interesting concept to think about because when you go to a traditional bank, right, and you've got cash and you deposit that cash in an account that you open at that bank, number one, you don't actually own anything. You have an IOU. And number
Yeah.
two, that deposit of yours is a liability for the bank. So they want to immediately lend that out. And hey, what happens when enough people go to the bank all at once and demand their deposits back?
Well,
Well,
I want to point out something, David, because what you just said, it supports what you were talking about earlier, where whenever you make money, you need to basically go out and buy something like real estate or something like that that's going to hold its value better. It's basically what the bank does. They lend it out with an interest rate that is equal to or greater than the deflationary aspect of it, or the inflationary aspect of it, and commercial real estate, lend it out, whatever. So they're doing the exact same things that David's telling you all out there that you should look into doing.
yeah. So when you go to a bank and you make a deposit and you open an account, usually if it's just like a checking account, you're not going to earn any yield on that deposit. Remember, the bank must lend out your deposit because it's a liability for them. So if the bank immediately just takes your deposit and buys short-term treasury bills with that deposit, well, then the bank is instantly earning like, what is it, like almost 4% on those bills. So if the bank is paying you goose egg, nada, for your deposit, but they are earning 4% APY on that deposit, the difference between what they're earning and what they're paying you, that is called their net interest margin, or NIM. So that's how these banks become very, very profitable, right? Because if they don't have to pay you, the depositor, anything, and yet they can take your deposit and go earn 4%, or maybe more than that, maybe 7%, or maybe they lend it out in the form of a credit card or something like that and earning potentially 30%. Well, all of a sudden they can become very, very profitable, right? So that is, why I'm so interested in reading up on the market structure bill and that Clarity Act, because if the banks are writing these bills, I believe that they're going to write these bills in such a way that, kind of keeps us as retail like at the bottom of the totem pole. So I really, really hope that, we get some quality legislation here this week. I really do, man. It's going to be a big deal for everyone in crypto. So what if the money in your bank isn't really there? We're going to find out.
Yeah, you probably guessed it. It is something else entirely. So, in this first part, let's pull back the curtain and unpack the surprising truth about what's really going on in your bank account. Okay, so here's the big reveal right out of the gate. That number you see on your statement, it isn't actually your money. It's the bank's IOU to you. It's just a record, a promise from them that says, hey, we owe you this much cash. When you deposit money, you're not storing it, you're actually lending it to the bank.
Right. That's critical to understand. So when you deposit cash at a bank, you're lending it to the bank and you receive an IOU in return, which if
Oh,
I want to,
David, I got a hard stop here in about 8 minutes. How much of this is left?
oh yeah, yeah, no, we're going to be done. There's
All right, yeah, let's go.
5 minutes left. Yep.
Yeah, let's burn through this.
Gotcha.
And just so we're all on the same page, what exactly is an IOU? Well, it's literally just a promise to pay a debt. And it turns out your bank statement is one of the most common IOUs on the planet. It's the bank acknowledging its debt to you and promising to give you physical cash whenever you show up and ask for it. This whole idea can feel a little heady, a little abstract. So let's bring it right down to earth with a super simple analogy that makes it all click. Just imagine you're at a nice restaurant and you need to check your coat. So you walk in, you hand over your coat. That's you depositing your money. In return, you get a little ticket. That's your bank balance. Now, the clever restaurant owner knows that not everyone is going to come back for their coat at the same time. So maybe he lends a few of them out to staff who are cold. This is exactly what banks do. It's called fractional reserve banking. And the whole system works beautifully, right up until someone yells, fire, and everyone rushes the counter at once. The restaurant doesn't have all the coats. And that, my friends, is a bank run. Okay, so if our modern money is really just a bunch of IOUs, a bunch of records, how on earth did we get here? To figure that out, we've got to go way, way back. Let's tell a little story about a village and a whiteboard. Just imagine, for a second, this tiny little village. Everybody knows everybody. There's a farmer, a baker, a blacksmith. You get the idea. And since they all trust each other, they don't bother with clunky coins or paper money for their day-to-day stuff. Instead of cash, they have this one simple tool, a giant whiteboard right in the middle of the town square. It's their shared ledger. Every single time someone gets a good or a service, they just wander over to the board and write it down for everyone to see. And look at how this works. It's so elegant. The farmer gets bread from the baker. Boom, they just jot down farmer owes baker. The blacksmith gets wheat from the farmer. Same deal. The baker needs new horseshoes. You just update the board. It becomes this living public record of who owes what to whom. And here's the kicker, the really important part. Think about it. All month long, not a single coin, not a single bill ever changed hands. All that moved was information. And honestly, Our super complex global financial system today, it's just a crazy, high-tech digital version of that same village whiteboard. And believe it or not, this idea isn't some new futuristic concept. It's actually ancient. A quick trip through history shows us just how these ledgers have changed over time. I mean, the tech has obviously gotten a lot better, but the core idea, it's been the same for centuries. Back in medieval England, they used these things called tally sticks, notched pieces of wood they'd split in two to create a tamper-proof record of debt. By the 1600s, you had banks with big, heavy paper ledgers. And today? Well, today we have digital databases that update records around the world at the speed of light. There is a quote that just sums this whole journey up perfectly. It's this long, slow march of money becoming less and less physical, moving away from actual objects and toward becoming pure, weightless information. Okay, history is cool and all, but so what? Why does any of this actually matter to you today? Well, because once you see money as a ledger, a lot of the weird, frustrating things about modern banking suddenly start to make perfect sense. Let's take a classic example, one we've all dealt with. You send your friend some money using an app, and it says the transfer is going to take 1 to 3 business days. Why? I mean, it's digital, right? It should be instant. You're not exactly shipping a box of cash. Well, the holdup is because it's not one big system. It's a bunch of different record keepers, your bank, your friend's bank, and they all have to talk to each other to
It's almost like these are different chains.
Canton Network. That's why I'm bullish on Canton Network.
make sure their records.
Connects them all.
Your bank has to subtract from its IOU to you, send a message, and then your friend's bank has to add to its IOU to them. All that back and forth between different ledgers, that's what takes time. All right, but let's get into something a little more serious. This one really shows you where the power lies. How is it possible for a government or a court to just freeze someone's assets instantly? Think about it. They don't have to break down a door and haul away bags of cash. Nope. All they do is send an order to the record keeper, the bank, and they instruct the bank to change one little entry in their database. Your number just gets switched to 0. Poof! The bank's IOU to you is canceled. It's a change of information, not a physical act.
And it's gone.
So all of this whole global system of IOUs and digital whiteboards, it all hinges on one single, incredibly important ingredient. It's the glue that holds the whole thing together. And that thing is trust. I mean, you have to have an incredible amount of faith in these record keepers, right? You're trusting them to get the numbers right, to not let anyone mess with the records, to always honor their IOU and give you cash when you ask for it. And on top of all that, you're trusting the government to be there to backstop the whole thing if it goes sideways. And look, most of the time, especially in stable countries, this trust works out. The system is actually pretty reliable, but, and this is a huge but, it's also a single point of failure. If that trust ever breaks, the whole house of
David,
cards.
I apologize, but I gotta break
Oh,
this off
congrats
today.
a lot.
Unfortunately, the money talk show on Mondays backs right up to our time here. It's not like that, of course, on the other days.
All good. All good, Mike.
But I mean, if you'd like to join us, we're just going to be talking about the macro markets, talking about wealth preservation as always, and probably touch on silver if you're not busy.
I hear you, man. I'm not going to be able to join today.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely next week for sure. Next Monday.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. I apologize for having to cut this short. Just again, just a Monday scheduling thing when you have people that are as successful as these gentlemen and Taylor and Jeff on the next show. You gotta fit them in when they're available. So
hey, man, a good call starts and ends on time.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate it, David, and we'll definitely pick this up tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Mike. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.
See you, everyone.
Hey, bye.